everyone, thank you so much for joining me here today. If you're new, I'm Amanda, and here we talk a lot about bridging the gap between mental and physical health. And today I have a very special guest. He is an Oscar and Golden Globe winning actor, director, and the frontman of Boxmasters, as well as a vegan. Billy Bob Thornton, thank you so much for coming on today just to chat with us a little bit. How are you doing in all this craziness?
Well, as you can tell by my appearance, haircuts and face cream haven't been one of my routines. No, I had a late night last night, so I apologize that I look like just some, I don't know, hobo.
I feel you. I know I need a salon, probably a gym, a little bit of face cream. I'm right there with you. I don't think any of us are too worried right now about whether or not our face looks at tip-top position.
Well,
I'm just
that's
glad
true.
I don't have COVID right now.
Well,
Though I did
plus I've
develop a
been a
little bit of a cough,
for
so don't be alarmed if I cough here and there.
okay.
So before we delve into this talk about veganism, I was actually super excited to find your band, the Boxmasters, because I feel like it's that genre that kind of died a long time ago. And this is the kind of music I grew up on. It's just fun. It's something light. It's not super serious like everything nowadays. What motivated or inspired this project?
Well, the Boxmasters have been together for, oh gosh, it's been 14 years now, I guess. And before that, I just did solo albums and solo tours. And JD Andrew and I formed the Boxmasters in about 2006. And it just came from our love of the British invasion and Southern California music of the 60s, like the Beach Boys and Byrds and people like that. But we're big British invasion fans, Beatles and Kinks and all that. And also, I grew up, near Memphis, and that kind of sound, like the Big Star and, bands like that were really big to us, the Memphis sound. So we just decided, because I always wanted to just be in a band like I was when I was a teenager. I mean, I grew up in bands as a member of it. I didn't want to be like a solo artist and to be all about me. So we wanted to form a band, and we wanted the name to sound like a 60s band, like the Box Tops or the Gentrys or the somethings, So we named it the Boxmasters, and we've gotten quite a following over the years, and we had the #1 record on Americana radio for a while, back in 2009 or 10, somewhere like that. I can't remember exactly, but we tour, all over the world, and our tour obviously this year was canceled until next summer because of the quarantine and all that. So we're gonna tour next July, August, and half of September in Europe, Eastern Canada, and United States. And our fan base has just grown and grown, and it's it's a pretty cool band. The thing about it is, you were saying it's mostly lighter stuff and everything. Sometimes our songs sound like that. They sound like pop songs from the 60s. But if you ever read the lyrics, some of them are
Yeah,
pretty
they're
dark.
not. Yeah, the lyrics are
But
a little bit heavier, but just as far as like
oh yeah,
and kind of jamming along.
oh yeah, yeah. If you like Paul Revere and the Raiders and the Beatles and the Monkees and people like that, you'll probably like our music. We have some moodier stuff, but for the most part, we're just a rock and roll band based on the '60s. And JD and I write most all of the songs. JD Andrew and I, and had a couple of other co-writers over the years. Brad Davis, who is in the band off and on when he's available.
So I know Paul Cartney is a vegan too, right? Is there any opportunity there for you guys to kind of collaborate a little bit, either with the Boxmasters or with the vegan activism? Is there any possibility that you guys could get together and do something?
Well, I have met him on a few occasions. He's a very, very nice guy, and I actually did have lunch with him out by the studio where we were both recording one time, and it was all about the vegan, and and I think Paul is more a vegetarian than vegan. I think he still eats dairy. I'm not positive about
If
that,
I
but I think
understand, I think he's an ethical vegan, so he'll still eat like eggs if he knows where they come from.
right,
If I understand
exactly.
correctly, I think
I
that's
think so. I think that's the deal. But mine didn't start from any sort of. I mean, I have to be, full disclosure. I have to say that mine started for health reasons and not for an ethical reason.
Right.
Although I'm an animal lover. We have dogs, and you know, who are like part of the family, and I'm all for not doing that. But what happens with me, I call myself a vegan who cheats, and but I don't cheat that bad. Once in a blue moon, I'll have salmon or halibut or something like that, simply because every now and then I feel like I kind of need it for some reason, and but it's so rare that I can't call myself a pescatarian
Right.
because I don't do it on a regular basis. I'm essentially vegan, and I went and saw a holistic doctor back in the late '80s, and I've been off wheat and dairy since then. And I was having these terrible headaches. I would get these, I think they call them cluster headaches. I guess they're really sinus based or something because they would be up in here and that would end up in the back of my neck and everything. And these headaches were so severe, I would be down with them for a couple of days sometimes. And when I quit eating wheat and dairy, they went away. And I haven't had it since. I just don't get along with dairy or wheat. And that's not to say, in terms of being gluten free, gluten doesn't seem to bother me so much.
Right. Most
So,
people don't understand there's a difference there.
yeah, exactly. So when I go in someplace and say, "Hey, can I get the vegan pizza?" I have to make sure it has no wheat in it. In
Right.
other words, if they say it's gluten free, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm okay.
Right.
I have to say, "Look, is there any wheat in this at all?" And so I generally eat things like that. Like the other day, I had uh, or what do you call it? Not a taco, but just the one you put cheese in it and flap the tortilla over it,
Oh yeah.
whatever it is.
Like a cheese crisp.
Quesadilla,
Yeah,
yeah,
quesadilla.
quesadilla. And I used this almond flour quesadilla, and they're amazing. So that's usually what I use, like almond or cashew flour or chickpea flour, those oat flour, those kind of things.
Well, interestingly enough, I'm allergic to almonds too. So I'm allergic to wheat, corn, almonds, and seafood. And yeah, the
Oh
almonds are a
yeah,
fairly new development, but most of the things
yeah,
that are vegan have almonds in them. So that was kind of an interesting
true.
transition. But yeah, you're preaching to the choir on the whole wheat gluten
Oh
difference.
yeah, and it used to be harder. I mean,
That's
as
what I was
you
about to
probably know.
say.
Yeah, I mean, in the '90s, like if we were on tour, and you were in a little town in the Midwest or South or somewhere, especially, it was hard to find stuff. But I mean, you can always get beans and rice,
Right.
anywhere. But now, almost anywhere, you can go to a town of 7,000 people in the middle of Kansas, and they've got this amazing health food restaurant. It's
Right.
crazy.
Yeah, that's what I was going to
Uh,
ask. Is you've been vegan since you said the '80s? I knew it had been quite some time. You've been vegan like all that time. I went vegetarian in 2005. I just went vegan last year, and I feel like there were no options. There was no education. It was just kind of here's some soy milk and veggie dogs and maybe some veggie burgers. Now have fun with it. How did you really find the resources way back then to make a healthy transition?
well, the thing is I when I say I stopped the wheat and dairy in the late '80s, that was all I stopped at that time.
Okay.
I still ate meat up until probably like the late '90s, somewhere in there.
It was still
And
hard even back then to really find much.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I found out that like I couldn't eat. I stopped red meat years and years ago. I haven't eaten red meat in ages and ages, and I've been like I said, essentially vegan for probably 20 to 25 years now. And I I found out that my blood type is type AB negative, which is the rarest blood type in the world, and
Oh,
less
wow.
than 1% of the population of the world has it. And one of the things when you have that blood type means that you have fewer digestive enzymes. And so I just can't digest beef or pork or any of that stuff. Fish is like the only one that I can digest, and not all of that. And I'm allergic to shellfish like you. That's the allergy I have that sends me to the doctor, is
Same.
that one.
It's the only one that will just
Mm,
flat out kill me if I had it and didn't
yeah,
get
exactly.
EpiPen.
So I cannot have that. But I was so fortunate to not have a nut allergy because I know a lot of people who have that.
Almonds.
But it's just that must really stink. But yeah, I have found over the years that it is much much easier to find stuff just about anywhere. But you're right, and back in when I first stopped the wheat and dairy, it was really difficult because I had to read labels and to notice things like a lot of salad dressing. Most salad dressing has
Yeah.
wheat in it.
You wouldn't expect it to
Which
have, yeah.
never in a billion years. Yeah, would
Or
you think?
corn, like
Oh,
everything has corn or corn syrup
corn.
or corn
I know.
starch, like corn.
And
Yeah,
I eat corn, but like you, I don't do well with corn. When if I eat a bag of corn chips, which I do occasionally, just because I can't help
right?
it, uh, it really gets me.
Yeah,
And I mean, I just know. And one of the things that people don't realize about eating properly is that it it's not only I mean, like, in other words, if you don't eat all these things you're not supposed to eat, you don't notice much difference every day because you're used to it.
right.
But then if you go back and do eat one of those things you're not supposed
You're
to,
dying.
it kills you. So uh, one of the things that one way corn affects me, for instance, or wheat, is it will give me breathing trouble.
Yep.
And I used to think it was in my lungs or whatever because I have terrible allergies. I mean, I've got hay fever, all those things, and I don't have asthma, but
Yeah.
I can get pretty wheezy during the spring. So one of the things that I discovered is that it was actually a digestion issue when I would have these breathing troubles because your diaphragm gets, if you get bloated, your diaphragm goes up under your ribs there, and it's hard to get a full breath, right? So if I don't eat anything all day long, my breathing is perfect. But but if I eat something that I don't get along with, like corn, a bag of corn chips, the next thing you know, the bloat comes
Yeah.
and the breathing happens. So a lot of people mistake, maybe sometimes having breathing trouble for having it in their lungs or in their upper, respiratory system here. And sometimes it could be that they're having digestive issues.
Yeah, and they don't even realize it. I know that I had no clue whatsoever that I had allergies until I went and got tested. So I was feeling really tired all the time, and I get nauseous
Right.
certain times. And I think that delayed food allergies affect everybody a little bit differently, just depending on how it works. But yeah, it's really important to find out what it is you have sensitivities to, so that you can try and avoid that.
Right.
See, I grew up. You grew up in Arkansas, yes, if I remember
Right.
correctly.
I did.
I don't tell many people I lived in Springdale for a few years, so
Oh, sure. I know where Springdale is. Yeah.
I
Oh, yeah.
actually technically grew up in Missouri. That's where I spent most of my time. But I feel like that was total steak and potato country. Like everybody, it was just that's what you ate was pork chops and steak. And I grew up on Lunchables and hot dogs.
Mhm.
How did you transition while still, kind of honoring your roots and honoring those traditions? Because I know it's a big part of a lot of the cultural
Sure.
parts of that. How did you, transition while still honoring that?
Yeah, I have so many friends, from like I went to high school in Arkansas, but I moved to Houston after that and came to California from, Houston. And my family mostly lives in Texas and California. So when I go to Texas, which I do quite a bit, it's really hard because barbecue and stuff like that are so
Yeah,
big. So everybody who has a party is a barbecue.
there's like
And
barbecue sauce in their blood in Texas,
oh,
I think.
I know, right? And so I get made fun of quite a bit by my friends and family back in Texas about that. But they call me a wimp and things like that that I don't eat the barbecue.
Which is the exact opposite of what everybody else says. Everybody else considers the Hollywood bad boy, and here your family's
Oh
calling
yeah,
you a
I
wimp.
know. It's
That's so
like,
funny.
yeah, it's not quite as sexy, I guess, being a vegan down there.
Right.
But the thing about it is like I said, mine is really about my health, and you can tell such a difference. You're more alert.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
just it changed my life when I quit wheat and dairy, and also not eating the meat because it bogs me down and I can't digest it. So it was an impossibility for me to continue that way. Fortunately, living in California, this is the state
Yeah.
for vegan eaters. I mean, this is, it's been here for ages. So, I mean, you could go on any given block out here and probably find as many vegan restaurants and markets
Yeah.
as you do
It
regular
was
ones.
awesome. Well,
Yeah.
except right now because everything's closed down. And you guys are on full lockdown, aren't you?
Well, pretty much they're relaxing some of the guidelines
Okay.
right now. So people are allowed to go to the beaches again. You just can't camp out on the beach. You can walk along the beaches and get in the water and surf, whatever you like to do. But it's not, it's still a little more locked down than most places are, I
Yeah.
would say. But they are starting to relax it. And the numbers are starting to come down here a little bit in LA County, which is nice. We just heard that yesterday. So, we order from the health food restaurants, and they deliver, and they follow a pretty strict protocol there. And but of course, I'm a germaphobe to start with, and have phobias and everything else. So my wife is so good at uh, she washes everything down with the Clorox wipes and does all that kind of thing, and so we've been pretty safe about it.
That's good. Yeah, I know that there a lot of people were just completely freaking out and you couldn't leave and everybody was on full lockdown. One of my friends was saying the vines are growing around the signs and
Right?
it looks like some kind of apocalyptic movie down there.
Exactly.
So I know there's a lot more options there, but do people seem to be kind of more educated? I mean, when I went vegetarian or then when I went vegan last year, everybody and their brother was, you're going to drop dead from a protein deficiency or an iron deficiency or calcium deficiency or whatever. Do you find that in that area in your circles, like in LA, that they're kind of more educated about that now? Or do you still get bombarded with the, you're going to die of a protein deficiency type of questions?
Well, I mean, I get 2 physicals a year and my protein is fine. So, uh, people don't understand that there's a lot of protein even in vegetables,
Yeah,
and fruit. I mean, there not as much obviously, but, when you eat nuts, there's a lot of protein in nuts and rice and beans and all these kind of things, and, I eat tofu and all that kind of stuff. So if I have a tofu taco instead of a chicken taco, I mean, I got plenty of protein in it.
right.
So I tend to eat a lot of protein actually. I I find that I don't do very well eating a lot of vegetables at once. Like
Yeah,
it kind of wrecks my stomach.
mine too, yeah.
So if I eat a thing of stir fry with broccoli and cauliflower and all these things, I kind of suffer from it. So I tend to eat vegetables in smaller quantities at a time. But with protein, I'll eat 2 packages of tofu with a fork just right out of the refrigerator, you
You
know.
are brave because I don't think I could do that.
But but everybody has to read up on this stuff if you're going to do it. You just have to know, eat nuts and rice and beans and tofu and things like this. Soybeans, lentils are a really great source. But I did this thing one time, not knowing because I hadn't read up on it. Certain things are good for one thing and not good for another.
Yeah,
Uh, for instance, what do you call it? Like fermented things. Fermented things are great for weight loss. Like I had this bottle of apple cider vinegar, and I would take a couple of tablespoons of that, and it's like, wow, 3 days later, it's like I just lost 5 pounds, and I can't really afford to
right.
because I'm not exactly like a big guy. And I weigh about 150, anywhere from 140 to 150 all the time, and I'm almost 6 feet tall. And but I noticed that, and then I got a migraine headache after 2 days of that, and I don't get migraines. My wife gets them on a regular basis, and I've had like 2 or 3 in my lifetime. And my headaches were always that other kind. I was,
Yeah, the cholesterol, yeah.
and so it was like really weird to be seeing the little colors and all this. And then I read up on it, and sure enough, it says taking the apple cider vinegar could trigger a migraine in some people. And then you read about how if you really want to be healthy, eat a lot of fermented foods, kimchi and sauerkraut and all these things like that. And then you also read that, and who knows which article's true, which one's not.
Right.
But I read one article that said that there's a high rate of stomach cancer in places where people eat a lot of fermented vegetables. So I guess you kind of have to weigh the things out, and try to read up on it through, reputable sources and everything. Because I mean, and you know how they are in the news. It's one day coffee is like the greatest thing in the world for you. It's like if you drink 10 cups of coffee a day, you'll live forever. And the
Right?
next day they say coffee causes cancer. You
Yep,
just never
everybody's gonna
know.
die.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah,
pretty wild.
I agree. I think you have a very personal account of that, of the way the media just blows things completely out of proportion and
Right.
makes up wild stories or just takes one tiny thing and runs with it. Didn't everybody believe for a long time that you carried a vial of blood around your neck because of the way the media contorted
Oh
one
yeah.
tiny little fact? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a drop of blood on a
Right.
little rocket. That's what it was. And somehow it became a mason jar full of blood.
Yeah. Next thing you know, you're sacrificing goats in your garage or something. Yeah, the
Yeah,
media is
exactly.
just
Oh yeah.
insane. And I think, nowadays we're kind of waking up to that, especially in lieu of everything that's going on. We're waking up to how distorted the media makes everything, be it,
Yeah.
the celebrities or the nutrition or politics. Everything's just so distorted. My number one tip to everyone is just get the frick off social media, get off the news, stop completely, just stop. You will get updated, I promise you, if something bad happens. And
That's
if I
true.
understand, like you're not on social media, right? You don't have any social media channels or anything.
Well, I don't. People put up things sometimes that you have nothing to do with and don't even know anything
Right.
about them. And it's my site or website or whatever
Yeah.
it is. And I don't know how to do it. The one thing that I do participate in these days, and it's because of the band, like if I'm doing a movie or something, they have their own social media and they
Right.
do it, and I may be on it, but I didn't do it myself. But the Boxmasters we had an Instagram account for a long time, but it was run by another guy he's moved on. He's working in a lot of people now, and it was just too much for him to keep
Yeah.
going with us because he got too busy. So we took it over ourselves. So we had to recently come up with our own Instagram account. So we have one now that's the something Boxmasters official, I think it says. But we only started this thing 3 or 4 weeks ago, and all of a sudden I've gotten into, you especially now that we're all locked down. Uh, JD and I've been sending pictures out on that, and that's one that's not so. It's not so intrusive, and people don't talk a bunch of smack on it. Really, you just send out fun pictures to
Yeah.
people, and your fans like it, and it's a good thing, I think. And uh, you don't write paragraphs on there. It's just like, hey, nice picture or whatever. Hey guys, how you doing? But uh, so I'll take pictures. Or my wife took a picture of me, and my daughter took a picture of me in the front yard the other day, washing the car and carrying the garbage out. And so we put stuff like that up. It's
Yeah.
innocent enough stuff, and then we mostly put pictures of the band on stage or in the recording studio. But Instagram, I've kind of adapted to that, and we're getting a lot more followers, which it really makes us feel good.
And I will definitely link that below for anybody that wants to check out the band. I'll link the website and the Instagram below, so you guys can check out, see if they're coming to your town, or see
Yeah.
when the new albums drop. They'll definitely be updated. So I will provide that and everything. You travel a lot between touring with the Boxmasters and filming and stuff. What are your tips really for staying healthy, be it through nutrition or just stress and everything when traveling? I know for me, number one, it's extremely hard to find vegan options in a lot of areas. And number two,
Right.
I get really stressed flying. I do not enjoy the concept of being on a plane. So what are your
Right.
tips for staying healthy while traveling?
Well, I not only eat healthy, I also take a lot of supplements, and I have a doctor here who practices. He's a regular MD, but he also does, believes in Eastern medicine and all that too. So their vitamins are really like top quality, and so I take a lot of vitamins. Every day I take D and fish oil and I take an adrenal support, an anti-inflammatory, which is basically some flowers crushed up in a
Pretty
vitamin,
much, yeah.
and the vitamin B ones, are really important. So I take a B12 every day that has B6 in it also. So anytime I travel, I'm on the vitamins every day. But I also take. There's this company out in Marina Del Rey. I guess you can say the name of a company on here, right? Is
A
it?
company what?
I guess you can say the name of a company on
Oh,
here.
yeah, of course.
Oh, okay. Well, there's this guy, Dr. Schultz. He has a pharmacy here in LA, and he has these, tinctures and different things. I take 3 times a day. I take his liquid cayenne pepper. Most people, when they go to a Mexican restaurant or something, and they get horrible indigestion, they think it's from the spice. In fact, one of the common misconceptions is people think that spices and chilies and stuff are what cause the indigestion. What causes the indigestion are flour tortillas and beans and and cheese and all of that stuff. Uh, but different types of pepper, cayenne pepper, and all those kind of chilies are actually digestive aids. They actually
Yep.
help with digestion, but they're also great for your heart. Like it keeps your veins and arteries healthy and strong and all this kind of stuff and clear. And so I take his echinacea garlic and the cayenne pepper, and it's a liquid thing. So I take a dropper full of that in water. A lot of my friends can't take it. It's hot as fire, but I love spicy stuff. So I do that 3 times a day. So I have all these things with me on the road. When we tour, I have one suitcase that I have a suitcase of clothes, I have a suitcase of shoes and boots, and then all of our wardrobe is obviously in the roadies take care of that. It's in a wardrobe case and all that. But I take one big suitcase with nothing but my own food.
That's smart.
So if we hit some town where I can't find everything, uh, I have bags of cashews, I have bags of almonds, I have these, things you can get at health food stores like kale chips and, a lot of different stuff like that. So I have a whole bag of dry foods that I can eat if we run into that situation. And then when I get low on it, when we get to the next town, let's say we're in New York or Portland or wherever it is where there are health food stores everywhere, I just replenish it. So I've got plenty every day. I eat a lot of antioxidant fruits and things like that. Every morning for breakfast, I have a Bobo's oat bar.
Those are so good.
I,
Delicious.
yeah, maple pecan, chocolate chip, and coconut are my three favorites. So every morning I have one of those and a basket of blueberries, which are one of the best foods on
Oh,
earth
yeah.
for anybody.
That's amazing.
So I have that's my breakfast every morning, along with a decaf coffee with soy milk in it. So that's what I have every day for breakfast. It may bore some people, but I love it.
I have the same breakfast pretty much every morning too, so I thought I was kind of the only person there. I feel like me and you have a lot in common here.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah, we both grew up in Arkansas, although I don't really like to admit it very much. Both vegan, we've had a lot of issues, a lot of like past demons. I know this isn't your most popular role, but actually, I remember watching A Million Little Pieces a couple years
Mhm.
ago when you were Leonard, I think was the character's
Yeah,
name,
Leonard, right.
and there was a part where you had said you got two choices. Either you can let it kill you, or you can let it go and you can move on.
Hmm.
And for me, that was so powerful. I actually am celebrating 2 years next month of being clean from cocaine and self harm.
Oh
And
wow.
that just really hit me as such a enormous thing because I think everybody does hit that point where you're either going to fall or you're going to fly, when it comes to addiction and that sort of thing. And I know that you had your own history with those kind of demons.
Mhm.
I feel like you really channeled that in that role as Leonard. Can you tell me a
Mhm.
little bit more about that, about what that experience was like filming
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. I mean, it was, I never had, like when I did chemical refreshments, we'll say, I never got into cocaine because my allergies were too bad.
Yeah,
but but
I
you
like
know,
your reasoning there. Not because of any of the health reasons. I just had bad allergies.
exactly. But no, my uh, dalliance in that world, it was that was when I was like late teens, early 20s mostly, and back in those days, back where I grew up, in Arkansas, we were kind of like long-haired. Uh, a lot of people think back there they don't. It was all rednecks and stuff like that, but
No.
sometimes there's a lot of long-haired rednecks. I was one of them for a while, but we were a bunch of hippies, the guys I grew up around, and we were into sports and stuff too. But I was playing in bands and had hair to my waist and all that kind of stuff. So it was just one of the things you did then. So I did it more in those days because that's what everybody was doing. It was just not peer pressure, just the desire to be part of the crowd.
It was
You know,
social
it
acceptance.
was a social thing,
Yes.
yeah. And so it was the day of the hippies, and we just did that. And I looked at myself in the mirror one day when I was pretty young in my 20s, and uh, I said, you know what? You got to quit this or die. It's one or the other. And I did, with the help of a couple of friends of mine who really, stood right with me while I, got over that. And these days, I don't even take medicine. I mean, it's been years and years. I haven't taken over the counter cold medicine or anything like that in so long. I do it all naturally. And when I get a clogged up sinuses, I do the cayenne pepper and I do some different homeopathics, and I don't know if you ever take Rescue Remedy or
I
not,
do.
but
I take
it,
Rescue Remedy.
it
I take Rescue
works.
Remedy Sleep. Both of them.
Oh
Oh my
yeah,
gosh. Yeah. So
it,
amazing.
it totally works. I
Yeah.
mean,
I will
and
link that below too, because that is just amazing for, I do get anxiety sometimes. I used to have panic attacks when I was in the throes of what I call my kind of dark night of the soul. And I'm not saying Rescue Remedy fixed everything, but it would take the edge off sometimes. And since I've
oh,
been
absolutely.
through my healing journey, it's something I utilize frequently, either when I'm starting to feel anxious or, like I said, use the spray right before bed. Because sometimes I battle with insomnia. It's hard because I live in Arizona and it gets
Mhm.
so hot that even if you turn the
Sure.
AC up, it's still hot. Like it's just
Oh yeah,
circulating warm
I
air.
get it.
So I
Yeah.
find it kind of hard to sleep, and that does
Oh
help a
yeah.
lot. So yeah,
Well, that's yeah, and that's part of it with me is I had you know drugs and stuff have not been a problem for me because, like I said, I quit doing stuff like that just with the crowd so many years ago, and then I would spend, you know, I was always kind of, even with alcohol, it's like we'll go on tour. I drink a few beers, when we're doing a show. Uh, I was always with that kind of thing. I was always able to quit it.
yeah,
Like I didn't have that kind of problem with alcohol. I would spend 6 months drinking, and then I would spend 2 years not drinking.
yeah. I'm actually the exact same
Just
way.
kind of like I could take it or leave it. A lot of times, I would never would drink usually for because I was depressed. It's not like I drank at home alone in a dark room by myself all night long or anything like that. I would drink when I would go out and everybody was having fun and get happy. That was my thing. And but just in a normal amount. Not that I haven't had my times when I hugged the toilet back when I was younger, but
I think I saw that picture in Inquirer.
there were times, but pretty much, not a problem. And like I said, now I don't take regular medicine unless I have to. If I get the flu,
Yeah,
I have to go to the doctor, or have to take an antibiotic for something. I'll do that.
of course.
So I'm not I'm not some like lunatic or who lives in the mountains and thinks that they're putting poison in me or something like that. Although a lot of drugs are that you get
Oh yeah, absolutely.
prescribed are not great for you. I mean, there's a reason they put those warnings on TV.
Yeah, and there's
And,
I think a whole part of the war on drugs is with legal narcotics, like with the opiates and stuff that people
uh,
are being prescribed. I see that issue just as much with my clients as I do,
oh,
cocaine and methamphetamines and stuff. I see a
oh,
lot of
opioids are bad. Yeah,
yeah,
the opioid crisis is pretty bad right
yeah,
now, and I feel for all those people so much. But my main problem these days, if you want to call it a problem. I guess you'd have to experience it to see what it's like. But um, I have an anxiety disorder, and I have OCD. I have pretty severe OCD and anxiety. I'm also severely dyslexic, so I've got all these things. I'll put it to you this way: it takes me a long time to read a book because between the dyslexia and the OCD, there are certain things that, like when I get to the end of a sentence, there, because of my OCD, there are certain letters that I can't let a sentence end with.
Oh my gosh.
And it makes me have to go back and read the sentence again and avoid that last word and then skip down to the next line without seeing that word. So between that and dyslexia, I can take one book and spend quite a while on it.
Books are not a fun recreational
Right,
experience. Audiobooks, stick with audiobooks.
exactly. And then the panic attacks. I've suffered from panic attacks most of my life. And I remember, uh, you know, about 2 years ago, I was having them every morning. And most people, when they have a panic attack, if they've never had one, they just think they're dying, you know,
Yeah, I'm
because because a lot of people who don't know about panic attacks, and they think it means, oh, you got really nervous. It's like, no,
no.
imagine this. You wake up in the morning, your heart is beating so fast. I mean, like up over 100 beats per minute, and you woke up with that, and you're having trouble breathing, and then everything looks like it has a filter over it. It's kind of like a thin veil, like if you were to put the sheer curtains in front of you. Everything looks kind of white. You feel like you're passing out. You start to hyperventilate, and you start to get dizzy. You feel slightly nauseous, and you can't keep your mind off of it. You're racing, and so you go into this fight or flight, and you just feel like that's it, and it would happen to me every morning here a couple of years ago for uh, 2 or 3 months every day. And I started doing some things that uh, took it away for the most part. It's not that I don't have one occasionally now, but one of the things I started doing is using my remedies that I used later in the day. I would start using some earlier. The cayenne pepper really helped. And because what that does, peppers in general, chilies, they open up your arteries and veins, just like they expand them. So, that kind of shocks your system back to life. But the other things I did is I hadn't been taking B12. This B12 is something that I only started about 2 years ago. And I started taking a sublingual B12 every morning, and that helped tremendously. And also just breathing through it and knowing what it is
Yeah.
helps. If you know you're having a panic attack and you go, okay, it's just a panic attack. So you just sit there and you breathe. And I was never a golfer, but I found that if I put the television on, it would either be the PGA or the LPGA, the Women's Golf Association. One or the other was either playing all the time on the Golf Channel. So I put golf on, and I would watch that because it's such a peaceful thing to watch. And so I'd watch golf, know that I was having a panic attack, take all my hocus pocus remedies, and I quit drinking coffee with caffeine in it.
Yeah, yeah.
So the second I quit the caffeine, it even dissipated more.
Yep.
So now I drink decaf coffee because I never was the guy who needed the caffeine to be
Right.
up,
If
and
you do, something's wrong. Like you're definitely deficient in something if you need caffeine to stay awake
yeah,
all the time. If you're deficient
exactly.
or your stress levels are out of control,
That's
something's
right.
going on. Get checked.
Sure. And it's interesting because uh, some of these homeopathic things, like a lot of people don't believe in it, but I'm telling you, I take them, and they have ones for anxiety or
Oh yeah, I've heard I've
all
run
this kind of stuff,
several different herbal ones.
and I take them, and you put it under your tongue, and you sit there for 10 minutes, and then 10 minutes later, you take another dose, and pretty soon you're okay.
Yeah.
And
Do you Did you have any history or experience taking prescription antidepressants or anti-anxieties? Because my history with that was just awful. Like I could take that and have worse panic attacks and hallucinate and think I was dying and feel like I was having a heart attack. But the herbal stuff that I take doesn't have those side effects, and
Right.
it's the effectiveness that I was looking for from
Yeah.
the antidepressants and anti-anxiety. Did you have any experience with those kinds of meds?
Not really. I only took stuff. I took, pain medications when I had, I was injured one time pretty severely, and I had to be on, you know, whatever one of those codeine-like things for a while, and it made me feel bad. I didn't like it. It was great for the first week, but then after a while, I didn't like that much. But no, I haven't really been on stuff like that. Um, I think I'm so afraid of drugs, these days.
I'm terrified of
Like a
prescription.
like a half a Xanax to fly, something like that. But that's pretty mild thing, like a low dose of that to fly or something. But usually I would just have a couple of vodkas to take care of that. But because I'm not a good flyer, I'm just not.
I'm
Yeah,
telling you, I think that we're somehow like related. We must have relatives in
probably
Arkansas or
so.
something.
Probably so.
We have so much in common.
But it's pretty interesting that the panic attacks really started to dissipate after, especially the stopping the caffeine helped me. And I don't drink things like you know
Soda.
sodas and
Yeah, energy drink.
or pop as we used to call them.
I
We
haven't heard anybody call it pop in so long. I actually think
yeah.
Jeremy calls it pop. I think that
Oh
Jeremy
yeah,
calls
yeah.
it pop.
I still call it pop, but
Sometimes.
yeah, I don't have any of that kind of stuff. But I eat pretty clean. When I put something in me that's not clean, I notice it.
Oh yeah. I was
So,
about to ask that, when I really started going through the grief of losing my parents and stuff, when I really started to process that, I noticed that what I ate affected, how well I was dealing with the stress, how well I was dealing with the emotions, how I dealt with that grief. Do you notice either, when you switched from being an omnivore to being a vegan, or just in general, do you notice that some foods make it harder for you to deal with, stress or emotions or anxiety or panic attacks other than the caffeine?
yeah, sugar.
Yep.
Yeah,
Sugar's my big one.
definitely.
If I eat too much sugar,
Yeah.
I will start having panic attacks.
Yeah, that's the reason that in the mornings I have blueberries, just like a natural
Yeah.
sweet, just fruit, and then the oat bars I eat are not real high in sugar. They're a little on the lower side of that, and you can get those kind bars and things like that are really low on the glycemic index or whatever they call it. So there's some ways you can still have some sugar that's not so bad, but if you wake up in the morning and the first thing you do is have like a giant thing of pancakes with a half a tub of Vermont maple syrup on it.
Right. That's not even maple, by the way. It's like high fructose corn syrup with
Yeah,
some
exactly.
dye.
Right. Yeah, those kind of things will really get to me. And if you eat a lot of salt and you're not used to it, like I keep my salt intake very low. I have low blood pressure by nature, but when I get freaked out, my blood pressure goes up. So for me, high blood pressure would be like 130 over 95. And I have friends who live with it that way.
Yeah.
To them, that's low.
I don't even know how people do that.
Well, I don't either. But but if I get freaked out, that's when my blood pressure goes up, just in a situation. But as an average rule, my blood pressure is like usually 105 over 75, or things like that. 102 over 70. It's pretty low. And if I eat something that's got a lot of salt in it, and it's one of the things you have to worry about with non-meat things. Like sometimes you can get these fake meat things, but the way they make them taste like meat is they pack it so full of salt.
Yeah.
And I've eaten a couple of those things before, and I got to tell you, my heart was beating so fast because sodium instantly affects your heart. I mean, it makes it start to beat, and your blood pressure goes up and all that stuff. So that's another area that I try to stay away from, is high sodium things, because once your heart starts beating faster, you start to notice, you feel like your head's a little tighter, like your blood pressure may be going up. Then you start thinking other things, and then that triggers a panic attack.
I get dizzy. I get very dizzy, very dissociated. For me, you were saying it's like a veil. For me, I feel like I'm on a movie set or I'm in a dream. Everything just seems very, very surreal and distorted, and
Oh
it's
yeah,
super uncomfortable. And I'll be convinced that I'm either dead or I'm dreaming and I can't wake up. And
sure.
that's a horrifying feeling. The first time it
You-
actually happened was right after my mom passed away, and yeah, it was. I thought I was having a heart attack because it mimicked
Oh
the
yeah,
symptoms of a heart attack.
sure.
It's terrifying for somebody that's never gone through it, or even for somebody that has. I've had it
Oh, yeah,
since
definitely.
2007 now, on and off, and it's rare now. But yeah, especially with this whole situation, I have had a couple since COVID started.
Yeah.
Where I'm just
Oh
like,
yeah,
oh my god, everything's
sure.
yeah,
Well,
everything's
I can't remember the name of this stuff. It's called uh, the time I went on this diet of eating all the fermented stuff. I was eating sauerkraut like crazy, and just for 1 week, I thought, oh, they say this is really healthy for you. And what I didn't realize is that that stuff causes more cortisol.
yeah, it's
In,
like
in
cortisol,
the
yeah,
cortisol, like in the morning, they say because all my panic attacks are in the morning.
yeah. Mine are
So
middle of the night, so I think that there's
oh,
something
I've
in
had
sleep
them in the middle of
cycle.
the night too. I've definitely, but it's either in the middle of the night. I wake up with a cold sweat in the middle of the
Yeah,
night, or it's in the
or in the
morning.
morning. Yeah, I never have them during the
I,
day. Very
I
rarely.
don't have them like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon
No.
or 8 o'clock at night. But when I was eating all that stuff, I didn't realize that that was raising my cortisol level. And I guess they say maybe it has histamines in it or something, which then causes cortisol. I don't understand it all, but I do know that I was doing exactly the wrong thing for what I was supposed to be doing, by eating all that stuff that caused that. And so they say that panic attacks are really caused by the cortisol level being
Yeah.
really raised. And so once I started doing things that were uh, helpful in that area, to not raise that cortisol thing, that's when they started to dissipate. And I rarely get them, and when I do, uh, I uh, I drive my sister-in-law crazy. She's like a healer, like a natural healer and stuff. So I call her and I'm like, "Oh, I need you."
Talk me through this.
Yeah,
Talk me down,
she
man.
does, and she knows exactly what to do. She knows how to talk me down. But then, by taking all the different supplements and things, I've done pretty well. But when you have anxiety disorder, you can blow things up in your head way bigger than they are. And like my brother, you were talking about losing your parents. My father died when I was 17, and he had cancer, and he was only in his mid 40s. And so when you go through that at a young age, and then my brother, who was 2 years younger than me, passed away at 30 years old in 1988 suddenly. And they think he had rheumatic fever as a child, and that was what caused his heart thing. And then I had a couple of incidents, but mine were both from malnutrition. One time, because I had no choice because I was so destitute, and the other time because of I don't know. I guess I did it for a reason. I stopped eating so much for a reason, and so to say that I was anorexic, I don't know that I was. I don't. I'm not capable of making a diagnosis, but I did go through a couple of years where I just thought, I've got to be skinny for all these different reasons because I was doing a role in a movie, and it was the way I wanted to be for that particular movie. And I ended up in the hospital again. So both times I had these sort of what appeared to be heart incidents, and really what it was is, my potassium levels and all my levels were just so low that
Yeah.
I had this incident like an anorexic would get with your heart, where just seize up on you or whatever. So two different times I almost checked out over that, and I made sure to eat from then on, and so, but they've also shown in many scientific studies that people who eat less live longer, but you got to find the balance. You can't eat nothing,
Right.
but then you also don't just go to the fast food place every day and eat two burgers and a thing of fries as a regular basis.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're really, obesity is is a hard thing to live with. I mean, I have friends who have really struggled with it and everything, and some of theirs are things that they can't help. It's not it's not necessarily always because they eat too much. But I just try to eat enough, you know, to get the vitamins and minerals I need and to not overeat. And I read an interesting thing lately. This woman who was a nutritionist, I was reading this article by her, and I don't remember her name now, but she was saying one of the things you can do is never eat anything out of a bag.
Yeah. A
She
bag,
said,
a box, nothing.
right,
Yeah.
it's just don't do it.
Yeah.
Put whatever you're going to eat on your plate.
Right.
Because and even me, being a thinner guy, if I get a bag of
You'll
really
eat a whole
good
thing.
chips or something, I
Oh yeah.
and you do it before you even know it.
Yeah.
It's like I'm just gonna have a few of these. You're watching TV, and the next thing you know, you got an empty bag.
Especially if you're
Popcorn.
doing something like you're watching TV or you're
Oh yeah,
doing something mindless while you're doing it. Oh yeah, I would plow down an
yeah.
entire pack of cookies
Oh,
without even
absolutely.
noticing it. Yeah.
Like I love hummus and guacamole, and when you get the regular size thing of hummus at the store, I can go through one of those
Oh
in
yeah.
less than 5 minutes. Don't
Yeah.
even with the chips, and And you have to face it that it's not quite as good with a piece of celery, you
No,
know?
it's really not.
And so you find yourself doing that because, you start out with good intentions. I'm just gonna cut up some carrot sticks and celery and have my
Yeah.
hummus. And then you have a few and you go, "Well, maybe I'll just have a couple of these corn chips." You know?
And then you've eaten the whole bag of corn chips, the whole entire thing of
Yeah.
celery, 16 carrots. Yeah, yeah, definitely been there. But thank you so much for taking the time to
Of
come
course,
and
of
have
course.
this important conversation with us. I think that, especially right now, people are ignoring how important nutrition and whatnot can be as a way to not only protect against this virus, but make sure that you're,
Sure.
staying healthy and boosting your immune system beyond, just in
Mhm.
case, not only if the virus comes back, but
Sure.
we want to be able to protect ourselves against these things, on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely.
And it
Yeah.
does
Yeah.
affect our mental health. Everybody's going after the Instagram six pack or whatever, but well, that's awesome. I'm a fitness model myself, and that's awesome, and it's a great thing to take care of your body. It's also very important to realize how you eat does affect your mind, and I'm really grateful that you took the time to explain that to us.
Oh, of
And like
course.
I said, guys, I will link the Boxmasters website down below and all of the yummy, awesome nutrients that we've talked about in case you want to check those out. Make sure that you like this video, and if you think it could help someone, share it, subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you guys soon. Thank you so much.